Hey everybody, it's Mike, and you're watching the Real Black podcast. And once again, joined by the one and only.
VQ, a Fearful Black Film Critic podcast. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing great, and I just want everybody to stay tuned. We got a great conversation with the one and only Nelson George today. Nelson is running an Indiegogo campaign for a new project he's working on called A Great Day in Hip Hop. You know, for those who know or don't know, it's based on the famous photograph taken by Gordon Parks for the cover of the seventh issue of Double XL magazine.
Wealth of knowledge on this one, man. I hope the people enjoy it, man. Certainly learned a lot. Definitely about the '90s, late '90s stuff that I didn't know about. But hope you guys will check it out and tell us what you think.
Don't want to waste any time. This is important. Get your
All right.
pockets ready, get your wallets ready. That's something for you to invest in right away.
Okay.
We have Nelson George with us, who's got an exciting new project called Great Day in Hip Hop. Tell us about it, Nelson. Welcome back, Nelson.
Well, thank you guys
Welcome.
for having me.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad it's under better circumstances than my last visit. So, which was
Yeah.
the Barry Cooper thing, you know. So this is looking actually funny. This is another Harlem story in a way. So, September 29th, 1998, 177 figures in hip hop, dancers, DJs, MCs, gathered in front of 17 East 126th Street, which was the site of the famous Great Day in Harlem jazz photo from 1958. The photo was taken under the auspices of XXL magazine. Gordon Parks took the photo. It's, arguably either the most historic photo in hip hop history, but it's in the top two or three, right? It's like one of those photos that everyone remembers. So that day, I was I was still a full-time journalist, but I was a young filmmaker. I'd worked on some movies as a screenwriter, but I'd never really directed. The year before '97, I'd done a short film that played at Toronto. I was at that point really trying to make the transition into filmmaking as a director. And a woman named Leslie Pitts was my publicist at the time. I believe I was trying to promote a book or something. And she said, "Oh, I'm working on this thing. We're going to get Gordon Parks to shoot this picture in Harlem." I said, "Wow." I went up to XXL's offices. I didn't have any money, but I said, "Listen, if I can get a few film crews together, we can shoot this. If you give me the exclusive rights to shooting on the block, whatever comes out of it, we'll share it." So that day, it was a beautiful, amazing day. It was probably the Million Man March of hip hop. I really mean that. The level of communication, and also it's in the wake of the murders of Biggie and Tupac. So that Luke came from Miami, Mac 10 and Corrupt came from L.A., Willie D and Scarface came from Houston, Jermaine Dupri was there, a bunch of people from Atlanta. They wanted to show hip hop unity, and as the photo sort of shows. So I shot this stuff, and I think it's interesting contextually. We wanted to make a film about hip hop unity, but no one was interested. Not in the wake of Biggie and Tupac. It was East Coast, West Coast. That was the narrative, rap violence. So we really had very little traction in getting the film done. Uh, so the footage sat in boxes in an office in Soho for about a decade, and then it was in a guy's garage in New Jersey for almost 20 years. We did a couple of different attempts over the years to get it going, but it never got anywhere. And now I'm 60, be 68 years old this year. 2028 is the 30th anniversary. So I got to get this done. So we have 7 hours of footage that we found on DVD cams and a little 8 millimeter, and we're going to use that as a backbone. But we're doing a fundraising campaign on Indiegogo because we want to shoot new interviews with people who were there. We want to, obviously upgrade the quality of the video because it was shot on little DVD cams, which it's the funniest thing to look at the footage to find the footage. I had to find my old camcorder. And so we actually I first screened this footage on like some old camcorder from like the ancient days of the 20th century.
Wow.
So it's been kind of fun, and it's also been kind of emotional. A lot of people in the picture are past. My good friend Andre Harrell is in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
Angie Stone just passed.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Plug 2
Yeah.
of De La passed within the last year. And so, there's a bunch of people who are not with us when you see this footage. So it also gives it a resonance. And then Gordon Parks. I mean, for me, Gordon Parks is my role model. I mean, he was a author, photographer, filmmaker, guy who was just, a Black Renaissance man. So, I always
Mm-hmm.
aspired to that. So it's called A Great Day in Hip Hop. And we're determined to turn this thing into a feature doc that sort of connects the dots between Harlem, because the picture was obviously on the same spot as the jazz photo.
Mhm.
Gordon Parks also obviously connects you to that legacy. And yesterday I had the honor of speaking with Sonny Rollins for like the third time. And Sonny's the last person alive from the 58 photo. And what's
Wow.
interesting is that Sonny, when we did it, we have to do it on phone. He doesn't really allow people in the space at this point. Um, the way he described being there with Thelonious Monk, the way he described being there with Count Basie, is the same language that Corrupt says to MC Shan, that Cameron says to MC Shan, or the Rakim. It's the sense of community and connectivity among generations of musicians is almost exactly the same. So we really want to. So it's both a film about what happened in the photograph, but hopefully it's a film about the continuity of Black creativity and the
Right.
connectivity, even if the generations are different. Like I asked Sonny how much did he know about hip hop, and he's like, I don't know. I'm not an aficionado, as he said, but he did know who Biggie Smalls was. One thing is you should know. I've been putting brief clips, up on YouTube and on social media. Um, Rakim with Kid Capri. There's a really great one with Fat Joe and Slick Rick. The guys from De La Soul and Freddie Fox. And these are just little brief bits of this hours of footage that I'm putting together. So I think, listen, man, in this environment, we always talk about can the community support itself? Listen, if you're looking for grants from the National Endowment on the Arts, if you're looking for grant, this world is changing right before us.
Mm.
So the next wave of Black creativity in terms of this medium, a lot of it's going to be crowdfunding. I'm not going to be the only person crowdfunding their projects, because it's going to be about community so much more than it ever has been. At least in the foreseeable future.
I mean, so Indiegogo is where people need to be if they
Yes.
want to support this endeavor.
Indiegogo, Great Day in Hip Hop, the film.
Fantastic. And so, every dollar raised goes towards the production.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I got my editing in the room next door, um, and so we're going to do everything in the house. But getting the booking rap artists, hip hop artists to be on time for a production. So like I need as much money as I can get, because I'm sure it's not going to go like clockwork. Let's put it that way. But
Understood.
what we want to do ultimately is let's say Rakim, who's featured very prominently in the footage. That day in 1998, the number one person everybody wanted to meet was Rakim. He was far and away the most respected MC. From the Locks to Cameron to Corrupt, everybody was talking about where's Rakim. And there's so much footage of people crowding around Ra, like he's the Godhead. And to me, to this day, he's my favorite MC. Um,
Oh, yeah.
so that sense of in '98 is interesting because it's 25 years since '73, which was, if we all agree so that's the midpoint at that point in the history of hip hop. Now we're 50 plus years past. So it really is an interesting. That day is a pivot point because you have Biggie and Tupac have just died. Jay-Z is on his rise. 50 Cent is on his rise. The South is about to come up really big. Uh, New York Bat Boom is still around, but it's the transition point in the culture that So I was really frustrated at one point that I couldn't get it done in an earlier time, but now it feels more historically important because now enough time has passed that it really is. You can see the perspective of time, and this is
Mm-hmm.
a way to. One of the things that happened very recently, actually, DJ Hollywood called me recently, and
Mm.
he was saying to me, "D Hollywood is he's probably 68, 69 now. Nelson, I know you saw me back in the day, but no one knows who I am." He was kind of bemoaning his status, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"You were a part of. I mean, he's in the picture, but
Right.
he's part of that generation before the thing really broke out."
Right.
And he's like a blues man from the South at this point, from who's in the Delta before Muddy Waters, and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully films like this can connect the dots between that group, the group that's kind of like the Kool Moe Dee, Run DMC era that broke it out, to like in the film and the footage we have. Amir Thompson says, "I'm only been in hip hop 6 years. I don't really know that many people."
Mhm.
Right? That's hilarious, right? De La. The funniest thing to me looking at the footage is who he talked to. Like everyone talked to De La. Wycliffe is there. Praz is there. Um, but Common is walking around the whole day, and none of my crew people talk to him
Wow.
because at that point he wasn't Common. He was
Right.
he was another young MC.
They're from
And that
Chicago.
same day is the day that Talib Kweli and Mos Def for Black Star came out. So they're there, and Most is bugging out over Slick Rick's jewelry. It's fun. It's hilarious. There's so many really, really great moments, and I think the connectivity of generations is one of the things that I'm really interested in with this project, and trying to use this footage as a way to build bridges, I guess, uh, between
Yeah.
old school, new school, and also the sense that back then New York was still unequivocally the center of the culture, and that's no longer true. It's just it's sort of diffuse. Obviously, Atlanta has been huge for a long time, but it does feel like right now, whatever hip hop is, it's in a digital space, and it's not necessarily about skills anymore. It's about likes or whatever
Right.
the
Mm-hmm.
metric is now.
Yeah.
Whereas that is one of the last days. Interesting enough, another tidbit. So this is '98, September '98. A year later, in '99, Napster would debut. Right,
Mm.
the day we so not September 29th, '98 is also one of the great days of album releases. So obviously the Most Def Backstar album comes out. Outkast has an album that day. Jay-Z has an album that day. Bear Nubian had an album that day. So it was a big album release when we still had album release days.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesdays was album release day in the industry. One of the reasons Jay-Z wasn't there apparently was that he was downtown doing press for the album. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Big Bad Boy, excuse me, neither guys from Outkast is there, though members of the Goody Mob are all there. CeeLo's there, etc. So, there's certain people you wish were there. The funniest story, there's two sad stories related to the photo that we captured. So, one of the things you see in the film, if you look at the picture, you'll see that there's a line of dark. It's really high up on everyone's body. It
Mm-hmm.
took them so long to organize people on these steps that they had planned to shoot by two, but now it's getting up to like three something, and the cloud and it's coming like this.
Mm.
Run is late, and there's a whole scene where Run walks up and gets an ovation from the crowd because in '98 Run was still like they'd still been the stuff. Those people grew up with Run being a lot of their first favorite MC.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, when you look in the footage, he's not in the actual picture because he had his hat on and it blocked his face.
Mm.
Oh.
So he's there, but he's not there. The other story that's crazy is Lauryn Hill. Uh, this is a month. Okay, this is a month. September '98 is a month after her solo album comes out, so it's just broken out. They're trying to get her there on time. She agrees to come, and she shows up after the last frame has been shot. There's no more film. And we have a shot of her in a car with Rohan Marley. You know, like they literally drove on the block and missed the photo by that much. So there's all these like great little sub stories that happens throughout the day that's going to be part of the doc.
Well, trivia. I don't know if you remember who else from Philly besides the Roots were there.
King Britt.
King Britt. Yep. Schoolie, MC Breeze.
I did not see. You know, the interesting about looking back, we interviewed certain people at the time, but in the actual photo itself, there were a lot of people who snuck in, who aren't known. So I didn't know Schoolie D was there. Wow. Well,
Yeah.
that's another person to put on the list.
Yeah,
To talk to. That'd be great.
Yeah.
What's funny? One of the producers on the project actually is one of those people who snuck in the picture. There's a guy named O'Neal McKnight, and he was Andre Harrell's. You know O'Neal?
I know who he is. I remember that song he put out a few years ago.
Wow,
Yeah.
you had a good memory, man. So O'Neal was Andre's cousin. At that time, he was more or less his valet, gopher, all-around guy. And O'Neal was there that day. In fact, the story goes that Andre had forgotten about the shoot. Russell Simmons was there, and he calls, "Where are you, doctor?" Because he calls him doctors, Dr. Jekyll. But Andre was downtown, so they drove up to Harlem. And O'Neal, like when they said, okay, only artist in the picture. Well, O'Neal is short. So he kind of snuck behind some dudes in the front row, and his head is popping up in the picture. So it's kind of full circle for him to help us, helping us make this project, because he lives in LA now. He's been involved with everybody in hip hop as a stylist. He now works for a company called Gush Cloud, which is an online company. And so he's going to help us round up a lot of the artists. He also works with DJ Cassidy on those Past the Mic shows. So he's helping us going to round up a lot of talent. So yeah, it's funny. Like there's a lot of people in there who I'm still finding out people who were there.
I have to, if I may, give
Please,
one
go
shout
ahead.
out. If I may, I'd like to give a shout out to Def Jeff, who was in the picture. Good friend of
Yes.
mine. He was there. He talks about that all the time. So I just had to
What's
throw
his
that out
memory
there.
of it?
Briefly, it was just he goes, "Yeah, BQ, I was there," and he talked to a lot of the rap artists as well. But it wasn't. He didn't get into much depth, but he just talked about what a great time that he had taking that photo and being there at the time. But yeah, I just wanted to give him some acknowledgement because he is both East and West.
That's
He
right.
represents both. So I just would like some West Coast representation out there too. I was happy to hear that he was there. That's it. That's the only one person I really talked to about that.
Oh, I
Yeah.
think before the interview, we both talked, me and Vashon offline. We both own copies of this magazine, which is
Yeah.
Certified Collector's, and I was looking for mine. It must be in storage, but
all of my double XL Source magazines are in my closet right here in nice bin. So I just reach in there and try to find it, pull it out. Oh,
Yeah,
there it
dudes.
is.
oh, you got the poster. One of
It's amazing.
177 hip hop bona fides.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then there's a lot of unbona fides like O'Neal. But I'll tell you something interesting also. So you look at the picture, the abandoned, this is 17, which was the main building for the jazz photo. The other two buildings were owned by a black man named LaForest, who was there that day. So they realized, so initially, Leslie Pitts, who I mentioned earlier, she was really organizing it for XXL. They had like RSVPs for, let's say, 90 to 100, right? But they ended up with almost double that number. So they had a picture. Gordon Parks had a map, so to speak, based on the jazz photo of where certain people were supposed to be. But once you got that many people, it was crazy. So they ended up taking over the other two stoops just to accommodate. And, I think what's really interesting, too, just about history is that the most difficult part of the whole day was organizing the people on the steps. And not because they didn't want to be there. It was almost like it was the biggest hip hop networking party in history. And this is the era of people are working on, people are writing it with pencil and paper,
Mhm.
you know,
Right.
and they're passing notes and people are just talking. So many people tried to organize that group. They gave the mic to Shaq. Shaquille O'Neal was there.
Okay.
Shaquille O'Neal, no one listened. Russell tried, no one listened. It wasn't until Cool Herc got the mic, got the bullhorn, that he was able to organize the group. So it says something too about who Herc was and how that generation, he was close enough as a founder to still be a presence
Mm.
for everybody in the picture, that when he got on the mic and started organizing people, they got in line, which was quite beautiful, I think, when you look at the full circle of hip hop history.
Right.
I love it. So, I mean, how do you imagine putting this together? Is it going to be like you're going to make the film that you wanted to make in 1998 and then you intercut it,
No,
sort of
I
like a,
mean,
or is it going to be?
it's no, it's a film about now. I think that one of the things that intrigues me, having now been around, you know, hip hop from the very beginnings, is what does it mean to be an adult in a music that is basically a youth oriented music, right?
Mm.
Um, what is life like? Obviously, like someone like Fat Joe has managed to continue to remain contemporary in many ways, but there are other artists in there who haven't, and I want to get a little bit into what are their lives like now, and when they look back on that picture, what were the expectations of their career in life,
Mhm.
um, and what has hip hop done for them, you know, as a on one hand, it's given them a career, it's given them a sense of immortality, if you wish, you know. The other hand, the pot of gold, this generation, people, almost no one in this picture, no, there's no billionaires in this picture,
Mhm.
Mm.
right? The whole marketing, merchandising part of it was kind of just beginning. If you look at it this way, Biggie and Tupac represent hip hop artistry, hip street culture. When you have J generation, when you have Puff,
Mhm.
who's a youth becoming a youth star, when you have uh, the sort of 50 Cent, the CEO era of hip hop is about to begin. So I kind of want to get a little bit of that into the film, where people look back on where they were at that moment and how they view their lives now. Because I think we got to start looking at hip hop as if it's part of our culture, we have to look at the totality of the experience, and it's not all champagne and bubbles.
Mm.
Yeah.
A lot of it is a lot of these guys, even in this picture, there's a moment in the film where one of the Cold Crush brothers is talking. Now, famously, Jay Z made that rhyme about, I'm doing it for the Cold Crush brothers, making this money. But one of the Cold Crush brothers is saying, I ain't met that $1 million.
Yeah.
And for those
Mhm.
guys who are so much like the Cold Crush, a foundational group in this culture, they were on Sugar Hill Records. They were on Enjoy Records. I mean, they didn't get the spoils of that. So I think that using the picture and using that day as a way to sort of pivot is a way to deal with questions of what it's like to be an adult male man, black man coming through this culture. Not to say there's no women. There are a lot of women there that day. The Brats there, Radiga, a lot of folks, but it's mostly dudes, right? And
Right.
so also, let's just for me as a like I say, being an adult, being an older guy, looking back at, I have footage of me in this footage, and I'm looking at myself crazy, So I think that that's part of what I want to get at. The footage is a vehicle to explore some other elements. So I went back recently to the block, and if you go onto the Indiegogo page, you'll see a video that I put up where I walk up to the building. That block is so much better shape than it was in 1998. The building itself, that 17 East 126th Street, is owned by a Latino woman who bought it literally the year after the photo. Didn't even know about the photo at the time. in the footage from '98, there's no roof. There's like foliage growing out of the window on the top floor. That block was, it was. I mean, the block was okay. There were some really good homeowners, but there was also a lot of buildings in terrible shape. Now you go on there, there's a lot of development. Let's put it that way. I
Okay.
mean,
So
uh,
gentrification comes into play as well.
definitely. I'll take a graphic example. For that day in '98, the holding place for all of the artists was a Methodist church on the corner of 126th Street and what's that? Uh, what's the next street over? Not Fifth. It's one block away from the site. I went up
Okay.
there. That church is gone, baby. The
Oh,
church is gone. It's now being it's a huge condominium being built on that same spot.
wow.
On the other corner, away from on the I guess on the Fifth Avenue corner, there is a another huge condominium building which is also going to house the National Black Theater. So on both ends of the block, there's these huge buildings that didn't exist at all and wasn't even conceived of as possibility back then. On the block itself, there are a number of white homeowners, but there are still a lot of black homeowners. So it's not totally, the woman who owns the building 17, uh, she's in it. She loves it. She was out there sweeping up when I came out that day. She was lovely. And what she told me was interesting. I didn't know this until I started researching the project. Was that a number of other photos have been taken at that spot since '98. There was
Mm.
actually a photo that Gordon Parks himself took of who within the remaining people from the '58 photo. So it's about
Mhm.
at that point it's about 6 or 7 people. There's also
Right.
a photo that Gordon Parks was part of black photographers, of like almost 200 black photographers taken on that spot before Gordon died. And then one of the most recent pictures, when Bill Clinton had his office in Harlem, Bill Clinton took a picture with a bunch of people from Harlem in front of the same building.
Mm.
So the legacy of that building and that real estate as a metaphor for Harlem and in different changes, I think is something we want to deal with a bit in the doc as well. So I mean, it's very ambitious what I'm trying to do, but
Well,
I think the footage allows us to go in these different directions. We can go honor the jazz photo through Sonny. We can deal with sort of the history of Harlem through the different photographs of the building. Because if you look at '58, you look at '98, you look at now, you get a panoramic view of the neighborhood. And then just the idea of where is what is it like to be a grown up in hip hop? What does that mean?
well, I'm sold. Before we jump into overtime, I mean, because
Yeah.
we're hitting that 30-minute mark, we're gonna cut it
Sure.
there, and then we'll go into
Okay.
overtime for Patreon viewers. So, I mean, so how can people get involved? I mean, this is history. This is a chance to have your name in the titles or the
Yes.
credits, so to speak, and get early access to other things that are going on with the making of this film. How can we get involved?
On Indiegogo, go to A Great Day in Hip Hop, the film. We have a number of perks. You can donate and get a thank you. You can donate and get a copy of a book that I've worked on. You can get actual early access to the footage. I mean, like of the film. There's also one where I'm doing I'll take you to lunch, and then we go walk over to the spot and take some pictures together in front of the building. And then you can just donate if you just feel like you want to just be down and you don't necessarily need a perk. It's been great so far. We've made about what are we up to now? About 15 G's in
Mm.
about a week. A couple of I got to say, a couple of people have been really great. I mean, there's been some people touched my heart, gave money I didn't expect. So I want it to be. Listen, eventually we may do a thing with a screener. We may do a thing with one of those Netflix, but that's not how I want to build this. And I think in this environment, it's about, it's going to be about community. Hip hop is American history. Gordon
Mhm.
Parks is an American icon. This film is part of American history. And I emphasize American history so much right now because they're trying to say, no, this is the heartbeat when you look at jazz in Harlem, when you look at hip hop in Harlem, when you look at Gordon Parks, this is America. And we need to support our part and our piece of that history.
Pull that credit card out now.
Right.
Take care of business. Make this happen. Let's not wait another 20 years for PBS to pick up the mantle on this. Let's do it now. Let's do it today. A great day in hip hop.
Absolutely.
On Indiegogo.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me. Very appreciative. And we keep la luta a continua. The struggle continues.
Absolutely.